My farming game called Tiny Terraces is a game where you have some little fellas that maintain your farm. I've been working on it for a little over a year. The last 2 devlogs showed the first 2-ish months of development, and here's another 2. Expanding on the honey that would be produced by the bees in the game, I wanted to add several different types of honey that would be worth different amounts of money. Here is some wildflower honey, which would only be produced when the bees collect pollen from wildflowers, and additionally, tree honey, which would be produced using the pollen of trees. Here are the 3 types currently in the game. To incorporate those pollen differences, I had to add a pollen type to the plant data. Then I adjusted the plants to match the type they should be. And there we go. Since the bees only had access to wildflowers, their hive produces wildflower honey. Up until around this point, the only real idea with this game was growing stuff, while having little fellas take care of them. Just based purely off me liking to watch the Thaumcraft golems take care of my farms. But then I saw a tweet of this game. Rusty's retirement, which caused me to tweak the game a little to make it have, I guess, more of a reason to exist. And this tweak was to make it something that could sit on the side or bottom while you do other stuff, making it into more of an idle game sort of design. After messing with making it sit at the bottom of the screen, I had implemented saving and loading, which as you can see here, I place the seeds and then reload the game, and they are still there. Wow! However, it had some issues with duplicating buildings. This was what the save files looked like at this point. I then started to mess with lighting, made this animation which just changed between a few set colors that I chose to mimic my understanding of sunlight. Little yellowy in the morning, going to a more bright white, then before fading to the nighttime having a little flash of pink. I drew a few light emitting objects, a torch, a campfire, and a lantern. Did a nice little animation for the fire, and added some smoke particles to the in-game version. Added some polish to the menu pop-ups, then made it hide the other menus and UI pieces when appearing. I worked on adding a system for particles. It would be used for falling leaves or any other floaty particle. They move using a fake oscillating wind until they hit the ground and then they start to fade away. I drew a pine tree. It looks good, I think. I also drew a birch tree, which looks pretty good as well. Very nice. These 2 types of trees make up the current wood-producing trees that exist in the game. Around this time, I believe I started to think about doing a demo, so I messed around with the line renderer component to use it as a way to mark areas. The game at this point was looking quite good. Since placing buildings was going to be a part of the game, I added in a shader that exposed the tile grid when needed, and made some stuff to be able to move the buildings. Drew a kumquat tree. Over to the right you see the sketch, and on the left the tree. Put it in the engine, looks good. Just messed around in the game a little. Look at all them fellas growing some barley. And this, kids, is how fellas are created. Then added the ability to harass the fellas, and decided as a way to make the game much better, it needed more progression. So I drew a forest floor tile, and started to surround a central area. Added a little code to plant a tree on the locked tiles, the idea being that the player would need to slowly purchase tiles, which would give them space to produce and grow more stuff. Made sure that the trees were randomized between birch and pine trees, did some stuff to make the tiles purchasable, and made a UI piece to be able to change the visibility of different layers. Woodfella. What a nice little terrace. Made this little notification thing that would show when something new was unlocked. Spawned in a ton of fellas to see the performance, and it ran perfectly fine. Then started working on a system for this little pop-up labeling stuff. I made it to where it could pop up on different sides of the button as needed, and it would swap sides to avoid going outside of the screen. Created this UI to show and change the selected seed or building. Very nice. Hovering over would allow you to see what type of seed it is. It would also force the text label pop-up upon changing the seed. During the nighttime, I had some firefly particle bunches that appeared. They looked a little strange, so I changed them into just these single pixel lights that would move vertically and wave back and forth a little. Gave them random sizes so they weren't all exactly the same. I didn't care to keep them locked on a pixel grid since I think it looks nice. Later, messed around with mocking up some slightly better looking UI for the seed selector and made an in-game version. Since this version was intended to be a demo, I started working on stuff specific to that. I worked on getting more of the UI to match the middle seed selector, rounded out the pause menu stuff, and the settings menu. Made some adjustments to ensure the pathfinding would be updated upon placing and removal of buildings. Then started working on an area planting mode, which the tiles were, for sure, being highlighted properly. More adjustments? Not quite. And there we go. made it update while the drag was happening, then created a pop-up that would appear on drag finish. I made use of that notification thing from earlier. When hovering over a new item in the shop, it would remove its notification from the number over here. Added some sorting tabs to the fellas menu, and made this controls menu. But look at the size of those item stacks. Added these error messages to sort of tell the player why something isn't happening. I then adjusted the area planting stuff, so instead of placing all available seeds immediately, it would place them over time, ramping the speed for the number it has to place. Now that's a nice looking terrace. Look at that thing. And it was time for demo release. Very cool. In the next devlog, I'll show how the demo release went. Goodbye.